On the bottom part of the back of 11.7 Day 2 notes, we're going to factor trinomials with more than one variable. So looking at number 8, if I was to change this so that it was just x squared minus 4x plus 4, and I was to tell you to factor this, you would of course do your factor pairs. You'd have x and x. Because the second sign is positive, that means they're both going to be the same sign. So you look to the front, so they're both negatives. And then factors of 4 that would add up to 4 would be 2 and 2. Because that would give you negative 2x and negative 2x. Now, it's done the same way when you have two variables. It's just the fact that you have to remember to tag on the y with the 4. Because when you're listing your factors of 4, you would say 1 times 4, 2 times 2. But here it's really 1y times 4y, and it's really 2y times 2y. Okay, so you have to be very careful to include that y. So when we factor this, we're still going to have x times x. We're still going to have two minus signs, but instead of just putting a 2, we're going to put 2y. Okay, and that would give you negative 2xy plus negative 2xy, which is negative 4xy. Now the only thing we're going to change this to is going to go ahead and rewrite this as x minus 2y squared, because this is a perfect square trinomial. Okay, so I want you to try number 9 on your own. When you're ready, turn the video back on. Alright, so on number 9, when you went to factor this, you should have put a y times a y. The signs are both negative because this is positive, and then you look to the front. And then factors of 5 are only 1 and 5. And then you would just have to tag on your z. Okay, now I would most likely write this without the 1. If you write it with the 1, it's not wrong. It's just not usually written. And that would be our answer right there. So if you got that one correct, give yourself a smiley face. If you got it wrong, go ahead and put a frowny face and write down any questions you have. Number 10. So the only thing difference is that this time I have a number in front of x squared, but good news is that number's prime. So just like we would start before, we're going to start with 3x times x. Now factors of 8, of course, are going to be 1 times 8 and 2 times 4. So we need to figure out where these factors are going to go. Now my signs aren't very easy here because my signs are different. So I'm just going to guess that my signs are going to be a plus and a minus. And now I'm going to try guessing my factor pairs. So maybe I try a 2 here and a 4 here. So that's 2x. And that's going to be negative 12x. Not quite. So let's try flipping it around. So maybe a 4 here and a 2 here. So that's going to give me 4x and negative 6x, which is really, really close. I just need to change my signs. So make this a negative and this a positive. So now I have a negative 4 and a positive 6, which gives me a positive 2xy, which means my final answer is going to be 3x minus 4 times x plus 2. Okay, and of course I am always checking for a greatest common factor, which this didn't have because 3, 2, and 8 are very small. They have nothing in common but 1. And I'm also keeping in mind that I'm checking 3x times x is 3x squared, and negative 4 times 2 is negative 8. Oh, but wait, we made a mistake. I forgot my y squared. So this is why you always go back and check. A lot of times when there's these double variables here, that's what students forget. They forget to tag on the y with the 4 and the 2. So if you gave me this answer on your test, it would be wrong. So what that means is we need to actually include 3x minus 4y times x plus 2y. Okay, so that's going to be our answer to number 10. You cannot forget that y. It's very, very important. Okay, so I want you to try number 11. When you're ready to answer it, turn the video back on. All right, so there's not a greatest common factor between 9, 89, and 10, but I will give you a hint here. The very fact that this middle term is so big, this is one of those times I would not start with my smallest factors. I would probably start with my bigger factors because I know that 9 times 10 is 90, and that's going to get me pretty close to 89. So when I'm filling this in, I'm going to start with 9g and g. Now I still need plus or minuses, but I'm going to pick out that my 10 is going to go with the 9. So I'm going to try my 10 over here, my 10h. Okay, now this might not work at all, but it's a good starting spot because I can check. That gives me 1gh. This gives me negative 90gh. And notice that equals negative 89gh. So if you think ahead and you think about the numbers, you can sometimes eliminate the choices that aren't as obvious as others. Okay, so 3 and 3 and 2 and 5 are going to create small values. We want a big value here. So the final answer on this one should be 9g plus h times g minus 10h. Make sure you did not forget your h's and make sure you have the correct signs. If you got this one correct, give yourself a smiley face. If you didn't, put a frowny face on there. Okay, number 12. We always need to check for a greatest common factor. And this one doesn't have a greatest common factor. So, again, I want you to try factoring this one. When you're ready, turn the video back on. Okay, so on number 12, there are two things I know for sure. I know that my signs are both going to be negative, and I know for sure that I'm going to use 1b and 2b. So notice I've put those in first because those can't change. Those are the only factors I have. So now I'm going to pick between 2 and 5. So if I put a 5a here and a 2a here, I get negative, whoops, so for some reason I put a b, 2a, negative 2ab minus 10ab, not quite what I'm looking for. So let's turn it around. So let's try 2a here, 5a here. So negative 5ab, and this is negative 4ab, and that is negative 9ab. So I've now got my middle term. Let's double check the outsides. So 10a squared, and that's positive 2b squared. So your answer should have been 2a minus b times 5a minus 2b. Okay, so if you got this one correct, give yourself a smiley face. If you got it wrong, give yourself a frowny face. All right, number 13, if you look at this, it looks a little scary. And it's because now we have an x cubed, and we don't do these very often, at least not yet. But if you look at every term has some form of x, which tells me I have a greatest common factor here of, at the very least, an x. But of course, I'm going to look at my 6, my 10, and my 56. And notice all three of them are even, which tells me that I can take a 2 out as well at the very least, maybe more. But right now I'm just going to take a 2x and see out what I have left. So that's going to leave me with 3x squared minus 5xy minus 28y squared. Now, I know I got the greatest common factor because when I look back at my 3, my 5, and my 28, they have nothing else in common. So, always when you take out a greatest common factor, make sure it's actually the greatest one. Look at the numbers that are left over. If they have anything else left in common, you need to go back and look again. You missed the biggest factor. You got a factor, but not the greatest one. Okay, so now from here, I want you to go ahead and finish factoring this, and when you're ready to turn the video back on, do so. Alright, so looking at number 13, the factors would have been 3x plus 7y times x minus 4y. So if you got this one correct, give yourself a smiley face. If you got it incorrect, give yourself a frowny face. And write down any questions you might have about this lesson so that we can talk about them tomorrow.